All right, this is the basics of Ableton Live. So this video is going to be for people who maybe just got Ableton or are still trying to figure out, sort of like the user interface and how that all works. I'm just going to walk you around like sort of the basics of what's going on here. And yeah, so let's get started here. So first we have our tap tempo, which is really nice. Let's say you drag in a song or something like that and you need to figure out the BPM of it. You can tap it, it will change it. That's great. Right, so I'm just gonna go over like some of my favorite features. You got time signatures here. This is your metronome. You got your count in, which I like on 1 bars, but you can have it whatever. This is your quantize. This basically what this does is when you're like recording in or moving things around, you can set what you want your grid to look like. So if I zoom in here, I can see and match up to any of these settings, which is super nice if I'm dragging clips around and stuff like that. Next, you got follow. So follow is really helpful. Like if we're super in here and hit play, like this will scroll along with you, which is a nice feature sometimes. You got your stop. Double click stop to move back. There are a whole bunch of shortcuts that I'll be doing a tutorial video on to get you moving around a little faster, so that way you don't have to like double click the stop button every time. Next is record. This is your arm track, so like if I hit this, like it's gonna start it, but nothing will be recorded until we actually hit something to record. And at this time I don't have my microphone set up through Ableton because it's on my recording software, so nothing's gonna come out of that right now. This is overdub, which is super cool. Basically like when playing something, okay, so I got, let's turn the master down a little bit. So I'm going to hit record, right, and I'm just going to make a series of little beeps right there and everything, right, which is nice. And what overdub does is when I click on it, I can record more MIDI notes on top of it. So when I go, so that's really helpful if you want to add more MIDI notes to, whatever you're doing, and that's, all fine and dandy. So I use overdub quite a lot. Very helpful feature. Here we have where we are currently. This is your loop selected, your punch-ins. This lets you do draw, so, let's say I'm like, on here or whatever, I can be very accurate, versus if I didn't have that and I'm doing some modulation, I can make, wherever that I want to be. The draw to is helpful because you can snap on directly onto what we got going on here, so like I can set this, to exact numbers. You got your midis and your keys. So this this button right here turns on and off, playing your keyboard as a MIDI controller, so you got your your keyboard there, and you can use that instead of like a MIDI keyboard instead. So that can be helpful. Maybe you don't have a keyboard yet, you're just getting started or something like that. You can still use your keys, as a keyboard, which is nice. This is your MIDI switch, right? It's going to be on and off, and then these little things will tell you if you got your MIDI going on, but it looks like mine is not currently hooked up, so I'll have to do that for the next video. So next, what I want to talk about is this right here. I do believe this is the arrangement window. Oh, another nice little thing to note is that you have this right here. This is amazing. Anything that you hover over, it will tell you, what it does. So definitely, be looking at that. So this is the arrangement window. This is like a timeline view type of thing. It allows you to arrange things by time in a very linear fashion, Whereas if you hit this button or tab, it'll bring you to the session window, and this lets you do things non-linearly, which is the coolest feature out of any DAW I've ever seen. I can't get over this function. It's absolutely amazing. For like a simple example, I can just drag this over here, right? And then suddenly now, instead of having it play in order, I can like trigger this anytime that I want to. I can have a whole bunch of drums and stuff like that, and that's super, super cool for live capabilities. Like, it's absolutely unmatched. I like to use it for, like, you know, let's say I have a collection of things, but maybe I don't like the arrangement, you know, or something like that. And so what I can do is I can click on it. I can move all my clips over to the to this view and play them in order, and maybe I'll do a demonstration of that in a later video. So next, let's take a look down here, because these are our ins and outs, and these are super, super important. This is where it's gonna be like all your routing and whatnot. So, you know, if it's audio track, then you can choose where you want your audio to come from. Channels, same thing with MIDI. I can, you know, take MIDI from other things, and that's all good. And I can choose, like, you know, which channel it's coming from. This is the monitor. This can be useful for a number of different functions. If I'm taking MIDI data from somewhere else and plugging it into here, for example, like if I make a new MIDI track, let's just make some quick MIDI notes really quick, right? What I can do is I can say I want this MIDI from this MIDI, and then when I monitor in and play this, it's going to play these MIDI notes and not these MIDI notes. So that's super, super awesome, especially for routing. Routing is a little more advanced, but I think that, you know, anybody can learn that. Absolutely. And so for that type of thing, totally can, you want to learn that. You know, that will be very, very helpful later. These are our audio 2s. This can be helpful. Right now, they're, you know, this one's not going anywhere. This one's going to the master. But if I Command G and group things together, see how this changes to group instead of the master. So now, like, it's routing to the group, and then the group is going to the master. So these are our like on and off buttons, activators, and what they do is, you know, like I'm playing something and I turn it off, and, you know, I don't get any audio from it. Super, super helpful, but you can still see that audio is playing. Next is solo. Solo will make it only so, like, the track that's selected, you'll be listening to it. And then finally is the arm record. So that means that this is, like, prepped for either playing it or recording it. So those are both super, super, super important. Okay, all right, so next let's go over to the browser. Browser is awesome. You'll be spending a lot of time in that. You got all sorts of things, you know, like these are stock. Everything up here is stock stuff. So, like, you know, you got your sounds, you got your drum racks. Everybody loves drum racks. Instruments, you know, these are all like drag and drop type of things. Next is audio effects. These are all good. I'll be doing a whole bunch of series on each one of these. Well, maybe not each one of them, but my favorite ones at least, and how I like to use them in my production. Next, we have MIDI effects. These are different than audio effects because they can only go onto MIDI channels. So, you know, like, drag this in, and then suddenly my, you know, I have this onto on this channel, you know. Next is Max for Live. I probably won't be doing anything on Max for Live just because that's a little more advanced. But, like, if you really, really love Ableton and you want to get under the hood, Max for Live is an amazing, amazing program that lets you actually, like, code inside of Ableton. And you're allowed to make whatever you want. I've made a couple little plugins, nothing amazing or anything like that. And then I also created a visualizer in Max for Live. So I highly encourage Max for Live if you guys really want to get into it. Next, we're going to go into our plugins, and these are going to be all of our plugins that are user-based. I won't go into too much depth about it right now, but as you get Ableton, you'll want, you know, third-party plugins and other things like that, and this is where they'll show up as. These are the clips. I don't really use these too much. And then finally, I don't really need to talk about samples either. These are just all your samples and where they are. But next I want to talk about places. And places is absolutely huge. I'll be talking about this in other videos, but it allows you just to add a folder to excuse me, add a folder that you can just click on right there. And I find this unbelievable. I can have like everything that I'm doing right here, everything right at my fingertips, and you can just drag and drop in, and I'll talk about that a little later. Next, let's go down here. These are super important. You'll be using these most of the time, right? So this is where like all your audio effects and everything go to. You know, you got your signal chain from left to right. So like I could come in here and, you know, grab like some other stuff and throw it on there, and it will go there. You can reorder them just by drag. Well, that one can't go, but let's see if we put like a chorus here. I can move these back and forth. The order that you put your effects in is super important. One can drastically change the other. I highly recommend experimenting, doing stuff like that. That's a lot of time, quite fun, and you maybe get like different results than what you're used to. The next is like your step sequencer. This is where like all your MIDI and everything is stored in your clip. This is super nice. You'll be using this a lot if you're doing a lot of like MIDI data and stuff like that. You got your time signature here. This is your groove pool. I don't want to go into the groove pool right now just for the basics, but basically grooves allow you to change it. You know, like let's say you have just like a simple like you know, 4 to the floor type of thing, and maybe you want a little more swing in it. You know, you could like edit your stuff and do that. I'll probably do a video on the groove pool and how to use it. It's pretty helpful. You got your notes right here. This will, if we highlight everything, right, we can multiply it to divide it to shorten it, and then multiply it to make it longer. Use that a lot. Here's your legato, and that will make it each there. I don't really use the duplicate loops because basically I just hit Command D, but you can set your loop regions right there. I'm not going to go into the program changes right now. And next thing that I want to talk about is the envelopes. Envelopes are super cool. They're controlled right here. Oh, I forgot to talk about loops. So yeah, loops, you can loop everything really quick. This is your position and your length. You know, you can make it longer by you know, grabbing this guy right here. Here's your length right here, bar. This is the envelopes. This is awesome. So I could be just like, let's see, let's do. I can grab anything on there, and you know, like let me show you. So the auto filter right here. This is the frequency, right? So then I can take auto filter frequency, you know, like slope the frequency, and then now when I play this clip. You know, and so that's one part of modulation. That's modulating within clips. I'll be talking about that a lot more because that is super cool, unbelievably helpful. And then I'll also be talking about modulation on the timeline as well, when you might want to use one versus the other. Next, I'm going to be talking about the master really quick, and the master is just where everything is sent to. And so like your master channel, master EQ, whatever, all that good stuff. Something that I want to note really fast is that, actually I'll talk about that in gain structure. Okay, so that basically concludes an overview of everything on the user interface of Ableton. If this video was helpful to you, go ahead and like it, subscribe it. Give me a comment if you want to see any tutorials done at all. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of them, and I'd love to hear from you guys what you think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.